shit too hot, tell him drop it down, down.
Hey, this is AltBraKz, and today I'm going to show you how I make killer 808s using a selection of Yum Audio's plugins in a notch filter. We're going to start this with a really basic 808 sound. It's just a simple sine wave with a pitch envelope on it. So that sounds like this. Nothing to write home about. And then combined with the drum loop that I've got going here.
That shit too hot, tell him drop it down, down.
That's pretty boring sounding. It doesn't stand out in the mix very well. So I'm going to use a bunch of different Yum Audio plugins and it'll help beef it up. I've added in the full plugin chain here and just turned each of them off. So we're going to start with Slap, and then we're going to use an instance of Flux Machine, a notch filter, which I need to change when we turn this on. The Grater, another instance of Flux Machine, and then Spread. So I'm going to go through each of these and show you how I use them. So I'll go ahead and turn on Slap and bring that up here. If you're not familiar with Slap, it's like a full effects chain that works really well on drums, but it also works to process all sorts of other sounds. The main draw to this is this transient replacer here. So you can choose from a number of different transient sounds to replace the transient on the existing sound that you're running through this. I like these thuddy ones. Heavy thud sounds good, so that will add a pretty big impact to the start of the sound. So we'll just solo this. You can hear already we have a much more noticeable transient. There wasn't really anything on that before because it was just a sine wave. You can adjust the length of the transient. And we're just going to keep it nice and short here. And crank the clipper up. Maybe not that much. You can use this punish knob to add more character to it and push it harder. Use the transient shaper here to give it a bit more punch at the beginning and bring the transient out more. So that's already sounding pretty fat, but if we use fat, we can make it sound even fatter. Then you adjust the boost point here until it sounds good in the envelope. Clap is going to contribute a lot to this sound because it generates noise over top of the existing audio, and then you've got a little XY grid here to change the timbre and the length of the envelope. So you can hear that adds a lot of crunch to the sound. So I'm going to leave the envelope close to max. And then Spray is a reverb, but in this case, it's going to accentuate the noise that we've added here. And the last thing we're going to do in Slap is crank up this squash knob a little bit, and that just adds overall compression to the sound. Kind of evens it out a bit. So as is, this will be a pretty thick 808 to use, but we're going to take it quite a bit further here. So next I'm going to turn on this Flux Machine and drag it over so you can actually see it. So Flux Machine is a tape emulation plugin, but I'm going to use it mostly for adding quite a bit of saturation to the sound. And then I'm going to add some warble here. Mostly to give it some more width. If you turn up this warble width parameter, it adds differences between the left and right channel in the way that the pitch is modulated for the warble parameter, which adds a lot to the stereo width, as you can hear. I don't know that we need any flutter. Add a little bit of flutter. Okay, next we're going to enable this notch filter. And that's going to add a lot of movement to the sound because I'm going to automate it after I enable the rest of these plugins here. It doesn't do that much right now, but once I enable the grater and add more saturation here, it's going to make a big difference. Turn on the grater. So the grater applies an extreme form of compression to the sound. It's probably my favorite compressor just because it's got a lot of extra stuff to it, and it really mangles the sound. This main slider here adjusts the amount of compression. And we're going to drive the input a bit more. Sharpness is like a combined attack release. So the lower it is, the slower the attack and release are, and the more of the original transient gets let through. You can hear it's not as compressed. Or it's maintaining more of the transient, but we're going to open that up a bit. This breakup knob adds errors to the compression and artifacts. It's pretty subtle, I've noticed, but we're just going to crank it up. Pretonality is an EQ that comes before the compression. So, you know, if you change the frequency content in the low, mids, and highs, you can get vastly different characters out of the sound before it gets compressed. So if you reduce the lows, you actually get a lot more of that top end crunch. But then you're obviously sacrificing low end. So kind of find what sounds the best. I'm actually going to boost it a little bit. Slice up is a final clipping stage that can really destroy the sound. And then re-inject takes the dynamics of the original sound and then feeds it back, or applies those dynamics to the output. So you can kind of maintain the dynamics of the original sound while still getting this extreme compression. Now we're going to add some more saturation, but just a little bit, not too much, just to kind of finish this sound off. I mean, you can really crank it if you want. We can add some more width if we want to. And then you can tweak the final tone of the sound using the dark and bright sliders here in Flux Machine. The brighter you go, you're going to lose a lot of low end though, so just be careful with that. And the last thing we're going to do is enable spread here. Spread is a multi-band stereo imaging plugin. It can add a lot of really cool stereo width to your sound, but I'm just going to be using it to make sure the bass is mono compatible. We'll adjust this. You can solo the bands here. So already that's sounding pretty good. Let's see how it sits in the mix.
That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down. That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down.
So it stands out a bit more. It's not, you know, just a sub anymore. So now you can automate this. So you want to kind of automate this so that it sits well with the beat. There's no real right or wrong way to do this. But you want to try and get that tearing sound. And if you want some more movement, you can actually go back into the grater here and we can turn on this Reso Boost, which is a bandpass filter or a resonant bandpass filter. So it adds some pretty cool overtones to the sound. If you really crank this up, it kind of destroys it. If you leave it a bit lower and then sweep this frequency, then you can get this and the notch filter kind of working in conjunction and get a lot of really cool tones out of this. We can automate that. Now let's see how that sounds.
That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down, down. That shit too hot. That shit too hot. That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down, down.
So you want to copy your animations over. You can get a lot of variation by, changing up this hit on each one of these. On this one, we could do something else with this notch filter. I think this animation actually sounds better than what I originally did. I'm going to replace that on all of these.
That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down, down.
Then you always go back and tweak this stuff. You could try out different transient bits here. Okay, let's just solo this again. You can mess with the pitch of this, the timbre. So this clap sound is really overtaking the transient, so the difference is pretty subtle. But if you turn this down, you can hear it better. And the spray. Some of these textures are pretty cool to use. You can adjust the point where you want it to start, where you want it to end. Let's see how that sounds. We turn our clap back up. You can see the spray makes a pretty big difference on this noise that we're adding with the clap. One other thing you could do to try and improve this a bit or make it more aggressive is add some white noise. I like to use erosion. I know this is probably way overdone, but it works, so whatever. So it just adds a little bit of extra sizzle to the top of the sound. But you can go through and tweak any of this stuff to get very different characters out of it. So if you want this to be really heavy, you could drop this low end a bit before it goes into the compression and get real crunchy.
That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down, down. That shit too hot. Tell him drop it down, down.
So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Definitely go check out Audio's plugin suite. They make some pretty awesome stuff. Yeah. See you later.